Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Ole Miss had a 67-61 win over the Vanderbilt Commodores, leading for a nice little winning streak for Coach Yo. Tennessee and Vanderbilt about in the space of a week. I'm here with Brantley Sanderson to talk a little bit of Lady Rebs talk. How you doing, Brantley?
Oh, man, I'm good, Steve. It's really good to be back. We've got a lot of good things to talk about.
Yeah, we always seemingly talk on the eve or somewhere close to the South Carolina game because we did that a year ago as well. But this was going into, even before the Mississippi State game on the men's side, I was like, hey, this is going to be about the best 2-week period for Ole Miss basketball, men's and women's, in recent memory as far as excitement goes. And Ole Miss wins the game against Mississippi State. This is after the women beat Tennessee and going on the road to Memorial Gymnasium. As you know, that place has been a house of horrors, like most gyms in the SEC to Ole Miss, but that place in particular. And Coach Yo has won 2 in a row in Memorial Gym, and that's pretty cool.
It's historic. It's the first time that's ever been done. And shout out to all the Nashville fans that came out last night. We had a good little crowd there cheering them on. It's, Vandy's not like the loudest gym, but it is by far the weirdest gym I have ever been to. And it doesn't make sense how much of a difference that should make, just moving the benches. But I tell you, it's just something to it. But even more than that, Vandy, they're probably one of the most improved teams in the whole country this year. They, for folks that don't know, their head coach, she's a UConn legend. Back in the day, she coached with Gino on his staff for a pretty long time. So this is her first head coaching job, and she's really turned them around. She had some really bad luck first few years with injuries, but now she's got the talent and a really good system, and it is not easy to beat them. And I think it was just really great to see us. I think we controlled the game from the tip. And just imposed our will. And you got to do that with a team like Vandy, because they are, they've hung 90 points several times on opponents this year, and we held them to 61. So I know Coach Yo was happy with the defense last night.
Yeah, and it's also important when you go on the road, pack your defense, pack your free throws. Mm-hmm. That's how you win on the road in the SEC and beyond. And Ole Miss, there were 20 of 24 from the free throw line. Vandy was about 50% for the game. I mean, that's the story of that ball game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think now we're 3-1 in road games. That's crazy. 75% of the games on the road we're winning. The only one we lost was to State, and that was just. I know Coach Yo doesn't think they really showed up for that game, but that was a really tough environment to play in. I think they sold it out. But yeah, they're. That the deep, like you said, defense travels. And also this defense seems like it is getting better and better as the season goes on. And I didn't even know that was possible. But I think this probably could be her. I definitely think it's Coach O's best overall team. But I tell you, I have not seen this level of intensity on the defensive end consistently like we've been seeing over the past month.
Yeah, the motto is we defend. And when you have a player like Marquisha Davis, who's gone 3 straight games over 20 points, she's playing out of her mind. And honestly, something like that is needed for any time a team goes on one of those runs in February going into the NCAA tournament. It feels like Ole Miss is kind of coming together at the right time of the year.
Yeah. And yeah, that's been the expectation, right? And, just thinking back to the beginning of the year, when they lost KK Deans to an ACL injury, that's a 5th-year point guard who is really explosive on the offensive end that you lost. And I feel like she was really just getting her comfort level and her rhythm with the system. So to have that, I think there was like 6 or 7 games in. That was after they won the tournament in the Bahamas. You kind of have a completely different team now. They've tried to move some people around. I think the one of the biggest strengths of this team is really the versatility. You've got Marquisha, who can really play almost any guard, 1 through 3 for sure. She's so long and athletic. and she can handle the ball. Maddie Scott is really a point forward. So it's just hard to match up with them. And when the last thing you want to do is see Marquisha Davis score 25 points. I think she's done that for like the past 3 games, because when she gets going, it opens up things for everybody else.
Yeah, entirely impressive. Now, needless to say, it does not get easier for the Lady Rebels as they go to Columbia, South Carolina to take on the South Carolina Gamecocks, the #1 South Carolina Gamecocks. And this is another one of those unbeatable teams, although last year they weren't quite good enough to get there. But we thought they were one of those teams last year. This is really good. They pounded Auburn on Thursday by 20 points. Auburn's a good basketball team. And how does Ole Miss win this game?
A lot of luck, and really, it's going to be really tough. No one else has figured it out this year. Not even defending national champion LSU on their own home court. But we didn't know what it was going to be like last year, and it went down to the last minute, or maybe even the last couple of possessions for them to pull it out. And I think this is a better team that we're bringing in there this year. With South Carolina, you just can't give them any space. Their weakness last year was shooting, and they clearly addressed that in the offseason because they
shocking, right?
They've got shooters that space the floor, and then you got 6'7" and 6'5" and 6'4" inside. So, I'm glad that I'm not the one that has to figure out that assignment. But I do think, Ole Miss has size. We have size. That's something that I don't think we've had as much of in the past. But every position in the starting lineup is 6 foot and above. So, that kind of length and the athleticism and the pressure, that makes it really hard to get into your rhythm. So if we can make them uncomfortable, if we can make them miss a few shots, they're not invincible, and if this is a year in the SEC. I mean, it's been, LSU has already lost 3 conference games, and that's not because they're having a bad year, even though some people on LSU might be a little disappointed in that, but SEC is just good. There are no bad teams this year. So, anything can happen on any night.
Yeah, I think this is, if anybody's watching this video, picture a 5-12 matchup in the NCAA tournament. That is what's going on here. I think it's going to be up to Ole Miss, who in this case would be the 12 seed in this matchup. Ole Miss needs to clog it up, make the game ugly, low scoring, make it a slog. The easier the game is, the more it favors South Carolina. But if you can just make everything difficult, turn it into a trip to the dentist, I think you have a shot in this game, much like they did last year.
Yeah, and I think we match up pretty well across the board with South Carolina. I think maybe one advantage that we have, I think it's hard for anybody to keep our guards in front of them. They're just really quick. They and not just Marquisha, but one thing that I think has really helped this team is now the transfers are starting to get comfortable and gel. Kennedy Todd Williams, Toddy, she has really settled into her own, and I tweeted this last night. She just always seems to find herself in the right place. I mean, she's just hard nosed. When she's driving to the basket, she's like a fullback, and you either got to foul her or just let her go because she's gonna get to the basket. So maybe that helps open up some lanes. Maybe that makes South Carolina a little bit, speed them up in the places we need to speed them up. And then, like you said, really slow them down. Don't let them get out in transition. That's it. That's what we want to do. So we really have to impose that on them and make them really work for everything in the half court.
Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Brantley Sanderson, thank you so much, man.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. I'm excited for Sunday.
Yeah, it should be a fantastic game.